Hi, this is Matt here, and we're going to do another video, a sport video for kickball, talking about the intramural sport kickball for Utah Bothell. So the first thing we want to go over here is the playing field. I think you've all been down to the field, and here are talking about the fair and foul lines, which I've marked in yellow. And here's third base and here's first base. Basically, the fair and foul lines mark the ball has to land inside of these lines, otherwise it's going to be a foul. And if it's a foul, then it's actually a strike and kickball. So, yep, there that is. Equipment. I'm talking about equipment here. So, the first thing is that you're not allowed to tape ping pong paddles to your feet. But other things to take into consideration is you're not allowed to have jewelry, exposed metals, and other things basically that the referees deem that will be harmful during play. You should be wearing athletic shoes that cover the foot completely. Sandals and boots or open-toed shoes are not allowed. Players. So when you're making a kickball team, the first thing you need to think about is getting 8 to 10 players with substitutes. So this means that the start and the finish of the game, you have to have 8 minimum players, but there'll be 10 players on each side. There's no limited amount of players you can have on your in your kicking order, but it talks about here if you have a team more than 10 players, then you have to select the 10 players to play out in the field and then make substitutions as necessary. Also allow all players to be in the kicking order, so even if you're substituting, you'll still be in the kicking order, and if you're playing, you cannot kick unless everyone else on your team has kicked before. The only time this can change basically is if somebody gets injured, leaves, or gets ejected from the game. Pitching. So pitching is kind of weird with kickball. First, you have to keep your foot on the little mound that we're going to have on the pitching mound so you don't get too close. And it has to be a smooth motion. The other thing to consider here is that it has to bounce at least twice before it hits the plate, and this prevents people from throwing wicked curveballs and spins into their pitching. And another note here is that if you're a pitcher and you're pitching against somebody that kicks really well, you can declare an intentional walk at any time, except for the declaration is irrevocable. And yeah, also the last thing here is that this is a good rule. If you have an illegal pitch and the kicker kicks the ball anyway, then whatever happens, the play stands at that point. So as a kicker, you have to make that decision for yourself. On to kicking. So each time, just like in our softball, we'll have one ball and one strike count. This will make the innings go by faster. And if you kick a couple of foul balls, you'll actually get a courtesy foul, so you have an extra kick before you strike yourself out. In co-ed, when a male kicker is walked, they're awarded 2 bases. This is to prevent people from walking all the males and just pitching to girls. So, also while kicking, you're not allowed to bunt or chop the ball in kickball. So you can't just kick it really softly or, yeah. And then, yeah, I think that's about it for kicking. And so, on to base running. So when you're running the base, it is the responsibility of the person running to avoid contact with the base person. On first base, we have the extra running base, so you can do this pretty easily. If you charge the base person at any time and knock them over, then you will be out. Also, runners may not leave their base until the ball has crossed the plate or the ball has been kicked, so you can't steal. And it's the sim rule goes. So if you run right as the ball is being kicked, and somebody catches the ball, then you have to re-tag base before you can go back. If a ball is overthrown and becomes out of play, then everyone gets 2 bases. And this is a rule basically because we have those soccer goals that are near the kickball field, and sometimes the ball gets caught up in there. Yeah. So another big thing here is that you're not allowed to knock the ball out of the runner's hand if they're trying to catch it as you're running to base. If you try and do this, you'll be ejected. Alright, the intramural field rules. If a player runs into the dead ball area on the way to the home plate, they must re-tag third base. And that's kind of a confusing rule, except for basically we just don't want you running way off into the dugout before trying to go home. So stay reasonably within the field on this side. And then home runs are allowed on our field. You can kick it as hard as you want, as long as it's within the as long as it's within the infield or outfield. And yeah, I think that sums it up. Here's a good diagram of what the field's going to be looking like. And co-rec rules. Okay, so basically with co-rec play, you cannot have a player difference between males and females of 1. So if you have 10 people, then you could have 4 males and 6 females, or 6 males and 4 females. And you have a minimum of 8 players required to play the game. And yeah, we covered this before, but when a male kicker is walked, they are awarded 2 bases. When you're playing defense, this is important to think about, is in co-rec play that you have to have 1 female. You can have 1 female at either pitcher or catcher, 2 females in the infield, and 2 females in the outfield. So if you do one of these, then you're good to go. And that about sums it up.